What is going on, everybody? Right. Happy Thursday. Hope everybody's had a good start to the week thus far. Welcome to another episode of Facemask Fantasy as the NFL season continues to creep closer and closer. Second week of preseason kicks off tonight. Let's hang out and talk shop as we continue to hit a couple of milestones, a couple of benchmarks through this offseason, basically counting it down, right? At this point, that's what we're all doing. We're just counting it down. I believe my technical issues from last week are resolved. I had to shut last Thursday's stream down early because of a lag and just a bad overall experience. So as you're coming in, as you're coming and going, if there's any issues, just throw me a message in the chat. Let me know. I tested this throughout the day today. Didn't run into any problems. So hoping that carries over now. At any rate, we've got the Eagles and the Browns tonight from Philly. Only game on the slate tonight. Most of the preseason kicks off Saturday. There's a couple of games on Friday. And then the majority of the slate is on Saturday with, I think, one game each on Sunday and Monday before we get to the third and final week of the preseason that kicks off a week from tonight. Vast majority of starters sounds like are not going to play in this game. I kind of thought that this of the three preseason games, the second week would be maybe the week we see some starters play. The Browns have played their third preseason game thus far because they played in the Hall of Fame game. So makes plenty sense that they don't play their guys. And then for the Eagles, it's just kind of a bit of a short week. Their first preseason game was on, I believe, Saturday. So short week in the preseason. No need to get anybody out there. These joint practices suffice. So this is more for Dynasty folks tonight. Dorian Thompson-Robinson gets the start for Cleveland. Interest in him in larger dynasty leagues, deeper dynasty leagues, those who roster probably at least 25 or more players in Superflex formats like my leagues do. So he's certainly rostered, somebody that people want to give a look at this point. Those are the leagues where long-term investing in quarterbacks, doesn't matter if they're backups right now. They hold value. They hold weight. They hold water. And then for the Eagles, I guess I'm not even sure. Maybe Marcus Mariota gets a few snaps, but on a short week, you may not even want to get your veteran backup quarterback any snaps at this point. Could be the Tanner McKee show for the Eagles. He's got a little less appeal than Dorian Thompson-Robinson does when you consider who he's like age and all of that. Jalen Hurts is 25 and not going anywhere anytime soon. Deshaun Watson's 27, but I think there's a little bit more intrigue right now around DTR than there is Tanner McKee. Nevertheless, tonight is for Dynasty folks only, and I know we have a slew of them here, so we can absolutely talk shop about that game. But for the most part, preseason kicks off later this weekend. Some news and notes from around the NFL today and over the past couple of days, just what it means for fantasy. Today's for y'all. This can go in any one direction. It does not matter. It can be Q&A, or we can just organically discuss the news and notes from around the NFL over the past couple of days. Talked on Tuesday about the signings of Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott to their respective teams, to their new homes. So if you care to hear any more thoughts about Dalvin Cook signing, what it means for Breece Hall, Ezekiel Elliott signing in New England, and what it means for Ramondre Stevenson, you can check that out Tuesday's stream. It is before the timestamp of the best ball that I kicked off about 25 minutes into that show. So First portion of that show is spent on those two running backs. Um, Couple other notes though that are a little bit more recent. It's been reported out of Detroit that the Lions are likely shutting down Jamison Williams for the rest of the preseason after he picked up a hamstring injury in practice. There's two sides to this coin when it comes to Jamison Williams. On one hand, his ADP is about to absolutely plummet, and it's going to be warranted. The vibes this summer aren't great. We already know he's not going to play until week 7. Um, Drops have been an issue, and now he's hurt, right? Um, Hamstring injuries are those types of injuries when in the preseason you're significantly more likely to want to avoid a development like that when it comes to drafting a player as like a stash and hope. Um, these soft tissue injuries are concerning this early. So if you want to have him completely off of your board, I absolutely understand where you're coming from. The other side to this, though, is his ADP, I would have to imagine, drops about 20 spots right now. I have to imagine at this point, if he's not going to practice, the only thing we'll get from Jamison Williams at this point are just updates on the recovery. And so we're already kind of expected that he's going to miss a couple of weeks. Basically, his availability for the beginning of the season is officially in jeopardy, in question. Until we know more, that ADP is about to absolutely plummet. It wasn't high to begin with. I'm just double checking it right now. It's on the other side of 100 at this point. Jamison Williams ADP on Underdog Fantasy is already 105. That's about to be I would say that's around 125. I would say in the next 36 to 48 hours. His ADP is about to be closer to 125. And there will be drafts, best ball or otherwise, um, where you see him go 130, 135, 140 because now you're going to have people in your league just taking him off their board. They already don't feel good about him, right? The vibes aren't great. He's not going to play for the first 6 games. He drops in practice. The vibes have not been spectacular with him and now he's hurt. The ADP is about to plummet. And I guess from the perspective of being interested in Jamison Williams from a fantasy perspective is at least you're getting a dude who, I mean, there's only one way to go up, right? When you're hurt and performing poorly, but still have some semblance of expectations, you're not going to see an ADP lower than what JMO's is about to be, I would say, in the next 4 to 5 days, maybe less. There's two sides to this coin. Some people are going to take him off their board entirely. They're just not going to draft him. As a result, depending on how many people are in your league who are like that, that ADP is about to plummet. Because if you're in a 12-team league and you just know for a fact there's 5 guys or 5 people in that league who are just out on him, that ADP is about to go way down. I would say the average comes down to around 125, and we'll see him bottom out into the 140 range, like in an absolute, like, nobody believes scenario. And there will be leagues like that. This is, I guess, if you have any semblance of belief in Jamison Williams, the time to draft him is, let it develop to that point. There's plenty of concern. There's a lot of red flags at this point. And I hate to say it, but I think at least right now, there feels like more red flags than green flags with JMO. But if you want to roll the dice, because he is still, no matter what happens, in every theory, JMO is a ceiling play. He's a ceiling draft pick, right? That's the idea here. Alex, AB, what's going on, guys? Good to see y'all both. Good to see you, AB. Yeah, it has been a minute. Thanks for coming in. I imagine we'll start seeing a few more people on the regular now that the season is close. Nevertheless, it's good to see y'all guys. Thanks for coming in. Um, no matter what happens, short of obviously a season-ending injury or a season-long suspension, Jameson Williams was always going to be a ceiling pick, a ceiling draft pick. And that's what you want to do in your drafts, especially this late in the draft, is swing for the fences. So are we expecting much of anything at this point? I'm not sure how you can, but he's going to reach a point ADP wise where you are going to, if you're not one of those people who are hard out on him, there are some people who are out on Jameson Williams. They don't care how far he falls. They're not going to take him. That's just that's going to be the mindset of some people. I don't want to say open-minded, way of thinking about things because I don't want to demean anybody's strategy, but considering all potential scenarios that still legitimately exist, that side of the coin is there will not be anybody else with Jameson Williams upside at Jameson Williams cost again in about a week or so. So that's that's the back and forth with this situation. It is on the whole, it is unfortunate. You hate to see that these are the developments that keep happening with him, but nevertheless, there is an opportunity for an extreme buy low here in your drafts if you feel confident enough to roll the dice. You hope things turn around for Jameson Williams just in general. Whether you believe that it can happen or not is a completely different story. In Washington, this was reported earlier today that, Ron Rivera is still not ready to name Sam Howell as the week 1 starter. I am going to go ahead and just call that coach speak. They're continuing it on into as long as they feel like they want to, and they have that right. Teams don't have to reveal whatever information they don't want to reveal, whether we as fans like it or not, whether the media likes it or not. We're not playing another game. We're not playing a real game for another 3 weeks. 3.5 weeks. You have that right. Nevertheless, I don't think he's fooling anybody here. No disrespect to Jacoby Brissett, but there's really no reason for Washington not to see what they have in Sam Howell right now. He's going to be the week 1 guy. Whether he stays the guy, he needs to play that out on the field. Sam Howell needs to go out there and earn it. Nobody can sit here and say one way or another that's going to how that's going to play out. But as far as him deserving the chance, given the situation that Washington is in, yeah, that to me is a foregone conclusion. I want to believe that if Sam Howell is the guy all year, that the ADPs of Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson are warranted. And I do certainly think that Terry has earned his flowers as far as being, the numbers are there at the end of the day. The consistency, I think I feel like he last year was overdrafted. Yes, he was available for 17 games, but there were certainly a few ceiling performances, but there were a lot of performances from Terry McLaurin that were left to be desired. It's not his fault. The quarterback play has been perpetually bad for Washington. You hope that this stabilizes him a little bit. And then Jahan Dotson I think he was pretty boom bust last year. So, and not in a bad way. I don't mean that in a bad way. He's an explosive player. The ceiling is very high with Jahan Dotson. Just to say, let's see if he can develop some type of consistency this year. Again, the boom bust of his season was, 1, he's a rookie, but 2, again, lackluster, bad quarterback play, inconsistent quarterback play is not going to help anybody, and certainly not going to help rookies. So, let's see if he can find a little bit more consistency this year. And I do like both Washington running backs. Uh, Brian Robinson was pretty good last year, all things considered. The man got shot in the leg, came back like 2 months later. I don't even know if it was that long. It was about 2 months later, and put up some decent numbers, all things considered. Now he's healthy. Now he doesn't have this bizarre situation that he has to deal with coming into camp. And then for Antonio Gibson, I mean, he's going to be the third down guy. This is a backfield where I feel like, and shout out to Ian Harditz, who on Twitter kind of shed light on this. This is the one backfield in Washington where you could conceivably grab both guys in best ball, because I think in no other backfield is it more clear whose role is who than in Washington's. Brian Robinson is the runner. He is the first and second down, early down runner. He is the bruiser. He's the guy who's going to go between the tackles and get those tough yards. He is the running back in Washington, whereas Antonio Gibson is, I would say, maybe not exclusively, but pretty damn close. He is the third down guy. He is the change of pace guy. He is the 2-minute drill guy. He is the pass catching running back out of the backfield. And I would be surprised at this point if Antonio Gibson got more than 100 carries this season. I think their roles are very much determined and defined in Washington. To this point, I've kind of come to this realization. This is the one backfield where if you play best ball, I am okay if you get both running backs. And again, shout out Ian Harditz for this little tidbit. I think there's enough of a difference, or I think there is enough of a confirmation of whose role is which, to the point where you can roll those dice, that where it's not a floor play if you take both of those guys. It's a floor play if you take, a starter and a handcuff whose abilities are interchangeable. That's a floor play. And in best ball, you don't want to do that. You want ceiling plays. I think in theory, you're avoiding a floor play in Washington's backfield, if you want to draft both of those guys. It's not a great offense, so I understand also if you don't really want to go that direction. But I don't think it's detrimental to any best ball builds. This is a great piece of running back news. Running back Javonte Williams continues to completely blow everybody out of the water as far as expectations that we had for him at this point in his recovery. He's expected to play 10 to 12 snaps on Saturday against San Francisco. This is according to head coach Sean Payton. I am completely stunned that he's getting preseason work, and it's a testament to Javonte Williams. I'm much more optimistic about Javonte than I was a couple of months ago. That being said, I was preaching this earlier in the offseason, and I don't want to completely pivot on what I said then. So I'm going to say it again as it pertains to Javonte Williams. Return to play does not always necessarily mean return to form. Okay, so as awesome as it is to see Javonte Williams' recovery seemingly fast-tracked, much further along in the process than I think the average person would have expected or thought, given the severity of the injury last year. But his ADP is now starting to climb as a result of the good news. And while he is tracking to be available, and I know he's younger, he's on the younger side. This isn't a veteran running back trying to come back from a major knee injury. This is a guy who is still only 24 years old. Might even be a little bit younger than that. He's 23. Yep, he's 23 years old. I mean, spectacular turnaround. I think we have to be incredibly patient. I still feel that way. We still have to be really patient with Javonte Williams. Return to play, awesome. Return to form, We're not going to know that until the regular season. Some people are going to bet on it. With his ADP continuing to come up and up and up, and now it is matching the ADP of some of the guys that are already coming into the season who we knew were healthy, aren't coming off of a major knee injury. He's now entering that range. Rashad White, James Conner, David Montgomery. I think DeAndre Swift is going in there as well, who obviously also had, DeAndre Swift picked up his slew of injuries last year, but it wasn't a major season-ending knee injury that DeAndre Swift is working his way back from. So those 10 to 12 snaps that Javonte Williams is taking, I will try to get in front of the TV to see them. I have to double check when Denver is playing. And again, obviously, I'm not going to try to ascertain anything, or you guys know me. This is not about to be hot take central if I'm able to catch 10 Javonte Williams preseason snaps. I won't be making any declarations one way or another based on such a small sample size. But it would still be nice to see. And just try to get some semblance of how we feel about how he looks. So that's Saturday, 8:30 Eastern. The Broncos play the 49ers. Make sure to take a look at Javonte when that happens. Very excited for him. Very excited that he's going to be back on the field sooner than, again, I think a lot of people anticipated. But I would err a little bit on the side of caution still, given the severity of the injury last year. ACL, MCL, LCL. Javonte, he tore it up, unfortunately. So a lot to come back from. Hopefully it proves everybody wrong, but we'll see. I did see the Breece Hall touchdown video. He's a guy that I am optimistic on. Remember, no two situations are alike. All of these guys they're like everybody, every football player, every person, when you think about it, is a snowflake. Nobody, and I don't mean that in the political sense. I mean it in the sense of like everybody's different, right? No two people are alike. No two people heal the same. No two people have the same recovery time and process. It all depends on a lot of different factors. But with Breece versus Javonte Williams, it's a little bit more cut and dry. Again, Javonte suffered a torn ACL, MCL, and LCL last year. Breece tore his ACL, and it was just his ACL. Obviously, still a significant injury, one that cost him the rest of the 2022 season. But it was a injury that was considered quote unquote cleaner than other similar injuries. It was a clean break of the ACL. In the medical sense, in the medical world, it wasn't a complicated injury to address. And so you feel a little bit better about Breece as far as his return sooner than later. Like him playing sooner, you still feel pretty confident about Breece Hall. You still feel okay about Breece Hall. It was not as complicated or messy of an injury. And like Javonte, Breece has youth on his side. So he has the makings of what are often outliers in these situations. Often the rule of thumb, torn ACL, a ligament tear of that significance, you usually have to wait 2 years for that player to return to form, not 1. Breece feels like he could be an outlier to that rule. Only 1 year we have to wait. It was a clean tear. Wasn't too complicated of an injury to address for the medical staff or the doctors that operated on him, that did the procedure. Still only 21 years of age. I have been saying we may have to wait a little bit on Breece Hall. We might not be able to expect the world from him the first month of the season as he works his way back. But I'm very optimistic about him from that point forward. Let's say about week 5 or week 6, I think is fair to expect for Breece Hall to hit his stride. And if all goes as expected, he'll be a guy that carries your team from, let's say, week 6, week 7 onward. You hope Javonte can do that, but you actually feel that, you feel optimistic that Breece can do that. I've been drafting Breece Hall. I listed him as one of my RB1s, a low-end RB1 when I did my running back rankings last month. I still believe that, even though Dalvin Cook signed with the Jets. Again, you can get my full thoughts on that if you care to check out Tuesday's stream. I'm fine with Breece Hall, and I'm happy to take him if he slides a little bit in this stretch right now because of Dalvin Cook's signing. If his ADP comes down a little bit, and it has, all the more reason to be in on him. AB, was that a redraft league or a keeper league where you have him? I have him in Dynasty. I haven't now. My saving grace is, I have 2 dynasty leagues. One of them is competitive. One of them I'm competitive in. I have a good team in. One I'm in a full blown rebuild. Right, I blew it up and I'm starting it over. I have JMO on this team, so I'm not relying on him, but it'll be a bit of a setback if he's not good, right? Because that's just one less young player that you can rely on. We'll see. Obviously, you don't feel great right now. You don't feel great about Jameson Williams. The red flags feel larger. They're louder right now than the green flags. And we have to wait week 7. We have to wait until week 7 until we can truly start evaluating Jameson Williams. And it probably won't even be fair to completely criticize him if he starts off with a bad couple of games, because that's just normal for NFL players to have a stretch or two of a couple games where they don't perform well. But that drum is going to start banging very loudly if it's week 9. I think that's their bye week. If it's week 9, their bye week going into their next game, which is week 10, and Jameson Williams, who currently sits on 1 career catch. I know it was a 40-yard touchdown, but 1 career catch, week 10. If he's only added a couple of catches to that total, the alarms will be blaring. Whether it's deserved or not, that'll be a question for when we actually get to that point. Probably not when you consider the small sample size of him actually being on the field, but whether it's fair or not, he is being judged against the guys that he was drafted around and ahead of. The guys he was drafted around, they were drafted ahead of him, but the guys they were drafted around, Drake London, Garrett Wilson, he went 1 spot ahead of Chris Olave. I mean, this is the measuring stick. Fair or not, this is the measuring stick for Jameson Williams. So, yeah, it hurts. It hurts to have him right now because you do feel like you're dealing with a ticking time bomb. It's not over yet, right? He's still only in his 2nd season, but it doesn't feel good. I totally understand. And there's no way you can trade him. Well, you would be. What would you get for Jameson Williams right now? A 3rd round pick? You could probably get that from somebody. You're not getting a 2nd, much less a 1st. You could probably get JMO for a 3rd round pick right now, but I don't think you could ask for a 2nd round pick. You could try. If somebody was offering me him for, yeah, I probably don't do that. At least right now. It doesn't feel good. The other thing there is there are so few pass catching options that the Lions have to rely on right now outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, you could argue Jahmyr Gibbs. But as far as the receivers go, there is still a wide open opportunity for JMO to be able to contribute. They have not found an obvious uh, yet guy to consistently run opposite Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, JMO is supposed to be that guy. That is still the role that he is supposed to fill. So we'll see. It's not over yet. It's not over yet, but I understand it doesn't feel very good right now. Another element, of course, to the Dalvin Cook signing is the other team that Dalvin Cook was rumored to end up on who did not get him. That's the Miami Dolphins. There's fallout there as well because it was a realistic possibility. He was actually considering them. Dalvin Cook is from Miami. There is no one obvious bell cow, so to speak, in the Miami backfield. You could argue there certainly was in New York, but the competition for touches is significantly less in Miami than it is with the Jets. Nevertheless, Dalvin Cook signed with the Jets. The ceiling play in this Dolphins backfield is Devon Achane. Now, he profiles pretty similarly to the guys who are already there. Miami's got a lot of speed. Miami's got a lot of speed on offense. Achane adds to that. He's only 5'9". His size has a lot of people concerned. But Raheem Mostert is only 5'10". He's only an inch taller than him, and he's 31. Now, Jeff Wilson is a bit bigger, right? Jeff Wilson is a bit bigger of a back. I think he's 6 feet tall. So he's got a few inches on him. He's got a little bit more size. Oh, okay, fine. He's a little bit bigger. Probably has about 20 pounds, 25 pounds on Devon Achane. But Raheem Mostert is only 1 inch taller, maybe 10 pounds heavier? Achane doesn't have the wear and tear. He's probably 6 years younger than Jeff Wilson. And he's probably like 10 years younger than Raheem Mostert. Yeah. Yeah, he's about 6 or 7 years younger than Jeff Wilson. He's 9 or 10 years younger than Raheem Mostert. This guy is a carbon copy of Raheem Mostert from a skill point perspective. They have a similar build, and they're both incredibly fast. They both have speed as their X factor element. The difference is Achane is 10 years younger. And if there's any position in the NFL that is, they call it a young man's game in general, but the young man's position within the young man's game is running back. Devon Achane is a ceiling play, is a ceiling draft pick. I should probably do a video about this. That was what was hanging in the balance when Dalvin Cook was still a free agent. Which young running back was going to get impacted by this? Now, obviously, Breece Hall has significant more value than Devon Achane does right now. When healthy, I think it's fair to say Breece Hall tracks and projects as a top 5 running back, at least top 7. Especially when you factor the older guard. Look at the first round picks right now, or the top 5 or 6 running backs in general. Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler. I know there's Bijan in there, but Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, these guys are 26 and up. When healthy, Brees Hall projects and tracks as a guy who is right there. And because of age, you're gonna favor him a little bit at this point. Devon A-Chain is not on that level. However, A-Chain's opportunity to move at least closer to that level just shot through the roof. Could the Dolphins still sign another veteran running back? If they were in on Dalvin Cook, that probably means that they'll be in on Leonard Fournette. They'll be in on Darrell Henderson. Uh, they'll be in on Kareem Hunt. I mean, this is all theoretical, of course, but just because Dalvin Cook didn't end up in Miami, they're not going to wash their hands and go, oh, well, we tried. That was literally the only veteran running back we were interested in. No, that's not going to be the case. They're going to do their due diligence and do their homework on some of these other guys, especially if something happens to any one of these three running backs. And unfortunately, Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson, more Mostert, but both of them do have a bit of a lengthy injury history. So they could still bring in a veteran guy. But all of those names are not currently on the same level as Dalvin Cook, even a 28-year-old Dalvin Cook. All of those names are a tier below Dalvin Cook. I would say several tiers below Dalvin Cook, even Leonard Fournette at this point. Leonard Fournette and Kareem Hunt at this point. They are a tier below Dalvin Cook. Devon A-Chain, man, draft him. Draft him, because even if they do bring anybody in, that player is not going to command the availability for carries and snaps in this backfield the way that Dalvin Cook would have. Devon A-Chain is the ceiling pick in your draft, the value running back. I would say 115 picks in at this point. Draft him. If he doesn't work out, then you had a pick outside the top 100 not work out. Congratulations, you played fantasy football that year. If he hits, you have a potential league winner. There is officially no risk and plenty of upside. Now, obviously, his ADP needs to stay under control a little bit. But even if you have to go up 10 spots or so to get him, let's say his ADP climbs up to around inside the top 100 by the time the season starts, it's not going to go that much higher than that. At that point, you still want to be in on him. And honestly, if they sign another veteran who is less impressive of a name at this point in their careers as Dalvin Cook is, and that keeps Devon A-Chain's ADP down, you should be all over that in your drafts. You should be all over that. The risk is minimal. The upside is everything. Who cares if he doesn't work out? There's guys drafted outside the top 100 that don't work out all the time. But what if by week 8 or 9, he's just that dude in that backfield? Food for thought. Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson, to that point, are still very enticing. They are much cheaper than Devon A-Chain. So you may be thinking to yourself, well, how are those guys not the better value? They are the veterans, right? Proven players, both of whom had a good season last year and are in the same offense. Sure, it's fair to want to be in on those guys, the proven guys. I'm just banking on, in this situation, a potential scenario where I wouldn't say Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson in this scenario have clear, unquestioned command of this backfield for the entirety of the season. I don't think that those guys are on that level. They're both very good players. They're both, when healthy, they can make big time plays, but they are always also going to make up a committee. One is not going to outproduce the other so much to the point where they're the bell cow in this backfield. As a result, I want the guy who has the upside, still has the potential to take over a backfield, at least to some degree, and that's A-Chain. So Raheem Mostert, 150 picks into a draft, that's fine. Jeff Wilson, 175 picks into the draft, I'm good with that too. I mean, this is more best ball than anything else, but the top 150 certainly gets selected even in 10-team 15 round redraft leagues. Raheem Mostert is a fine end of draft pick. I just think all factors considered, A-Chain is the upside play, even though his ADP is higher than his veteran teammates. So that's the fallout, I guess, in its entirety from the Dalvin Cook signing. I don't think I talked too much about the Dolphins backfield on Tuesday. So happy to kind of rehash that one. Basically, still be in on Breece Hall and be in on Devon A-Chain. So those are the big things. Obviously, we continue to wait on the availability of Jonathan Taylor and Josh Jacobs. Nothing has changed on that front. It's made it very uncomfortable to draft either one of them. I haven't drafted either one of them in a while, even as they slip, even as they tumble down boards. It's tough to it's tough to try to justify that. Um, Real quick, going over to the wide receiver position. I've talked at length today about running backs. Just going over to the wide receiver position. Titans wide receiver Treylon Burks yesterday suffered an LCL sprain. He's expected to miss multiple weeks. That sounds like easily the rest of the preseason, and his week one availability is probably going to be in question. You're not at this point going to want to start Treylon Burks. Even if he does play, he's probably going to get slapped with that questionable tag. It's the first game of the season, so the team will likely be cautious with him. Now is the time where you can afford to err on the side of caution. Um, I can't imagine, even if you draft Treylon Burks, that you start him week one. He's expected to miss multiple weeks. I mean, the season is only multiple weeks away at this point, about 3 weeks away, 3.5. But you can still, I mean, you can still draft him. His ADP is going to have to fall, I would say, south of 90 at this point for me to want to do that. Again, it's not an indictment on Treylon Burks, but soft tissue or the ligament injury, it's not a soft tissue, it's a ligament injury, it's a sprain, right? It's not a tear, so obviously that's best case scenario, all things considered. um it's just a little nervy, it's a little unsettling to be drafting guys who are already injured. I was way in on Treylon Burks after the DeAndre Hopkins signing, because I thought he was still certainly a good pick, especially when he fell about 10 spots from his previous ADP. But now, given this, I would want to see his ADP slide another 5, 6, 7 spots from where it is now before I take that plunge. If somebody takes him at 85, then so be it. If I can get him at 95, I would love that. I would feel great about that. It's like, okay, now I'll take a chance on this. Burks is young, right? Only going into his second season. So you have to imagine he heals faster from this than, say, someone who picks up the same injury, but they're 7 or 8 years older, even 5 or 6 years older. Feel a little bit more concerned about that, but at least he's young. He's a second-year player. In theory, should recover from this a little quicker than others. And any concern about a re-injury should be minimal. But it's dicey to invest at cost or higher in players who are already hurt, who have already picked up an injury. This season, at least. Like this training camp in the past couple of weeks, couple of days, couple of weeks. Those are the guys to be a little bit concerned about. So, could be a slow start for him. Doesn't mean it's over. Doesn't mean the season, you can't still, it's not like you can't not believe in Treylon Burks. You can still believe, but maybe now we got to wait, maybe we wait for him to get back to form for, not just these next few weeks, but a couple of weeks into the regular season. All is not lost, but it's twofold. It's rehabbing from an injury, and as a result, it is not involving football activities. So, injured players got to work overtime, got to work double time to stay up, to speed. It's tough. It's to that point. It's difficult. It's a difficult thing to do. It is a tough thing to ask of players in this situation. So, I would say go ahead and remove any expectations from Burks for at least the first couple weeks of the season. Say weeks 1 and 2. And we're hoping by weeks 3 or 4, he's somewhere back to what we were hoping we were getting from him prior to the injury. Yeah, it's tough to feel good about right now in best ball, Alex, but like I said, we may have to adjust expectations, but it's still conceivable that Burks by weeks 4 or weeks 5 is giving you some steady wide receiver 3 performances. Maybe he's able to give you a wide receiver 2 performance by then. And then at least it's like, all right, we have something. If that's the case at that point, it's like, okay, we've got something to work with. And that possibility is still there. But yeah, any early season expectations we had of him or hoping to be able to rely on him, that's probably out the window. I'm now looking at like weeks 3 to 5, somewhere in that range, is when Treylon Burks is able to help people out again. I think it was earlier this week, not late last week, earlier this week, J.K. Dobbins, just to go back to the running backs, was removed from the PUP list. So he is now practicing with the team. I think it's fair to say there was always going to be some expectation, at least with Dobbins, like because he was holding in, that a resolution was going to take place. J.K. Dobbins is not in the situation of Josh Jacobs, where he's earned the ability to sit out games. He's looking for more money. He was also trying to, I think, preserve his body as a result of the hold in. So he was waiting a couple of weeks before he works his way back to practice, trying to preserve himself a little bit, considering the injuries he's suffered the past couple of years. You understand it. But this is a new offense that Baltimore is installing. Not that it should be too difficult. Dobbins figures to see plenty of work in his Ravens backfield. Maybe he actually catches some passes this year with Todd Monken's offense. So he goes back to being, a guy that you feel fine about in the 6th round of drafts. He will be their starter. You just hope he's healthy. If he's healthy, he's got, let's say, top 15 upside in the 6th round. Top 15 at the position upside. A high-end RB2 upside in the 6th round. It's pretty good value. So you feel a little bit better about him. I think those are the major updates. We continue to wait on any status updates on the health of Miles Sanders and Damian Harris. Sanders continues to miss time. I think he picked up a groin injury, so he's missing time at practice right now or at the moment. So TBD on when Sanders will return to the field. His week 1 availability is not yet in question. Damian Harris picked up a knee injury. I don't think it's serious. So we'll continue to monitor these developments as they progress, as they move forward. No major injury updates there, or no major updates to the injury suffered by Damian Harris and Miles Sanders. As of right now, we expect those guys to suit up for week 1. Those are the major news and notes today. I don't have much else for you guys with just 5 minutes to go before the start of this preseason game. I'm sorry. Actually, that starts at 7:30. Okay, well, either way. For some reason, I thought it started at 7. Nevertheless, those are the news and notes. And we are at the end of the chat. So if there's no questions about any one thing specifically, probably go ahead and call this. I'm just happy that my tech issues were resolved. I don't think I had any issues today the way I did last week. So happy to report that. So I guess that's my my good thing for today. Tech results or tech issues were resolved. Yeah, if there are any questions, if you've got anything going on, happy to talk shop on that. But news and notes, I think we've pretty much covered them at this point. More headlines and tidbits to come as a result of the week 2 preseason slate, most of which is on Saturday. So you got a trade, AB. Wants Rashad White and will give you Daniel Jones in a super flex league. So what's the context of the situation? What does your roster look like? What does his roster look like? Maybe not what does his roster look like, but does your roster How badly do you need a quarterback? How much are you relying on Rashad White this year and for the next couple of years? Like, Daniel Jones is in a vacuum more valuable than Rashad White. In a superflex league, Daniel Jones is more valuable. And then whoever your running backs are, um, that ultimately for me determines it. Um, you know, I haven't said this mantra for a little while. I know it sounds obvious, but I'll just bring it back. It's just the first question you always have to ask yourself is for the intents of your team and what you're trying to do, whether you're trying to compete or whether you're trying to rebuild. Just ask yourself when it comes to the trade, does it make my situation better? Does it make my team better? If taking Rashad White off of your roster and adding Daniel Jones to it is helpful because you could use you don't have a clear cut QB2 and you've got good options at running back, then I would absolutely say, yes, make the move. If you feel comfortable with the quarterbacks that you have, meanwhile, Rashad White is a guy that you might be heavily relying on this year, maybe your running back depth is a little thin, then it is going to give you a little bit more pause. In a vacuum, Daniel Jones is more valuable. He's a 26-year-old quarterback who just got a contract extension. Brees, Pollard, Connor, Mostert, Jamal Williams. Okay, so I would do that trade. I would do that trade. I assume he doesn't. You're not going to be able to counter that trade with James Conner. You're not going to be able to counter that trade with any of those other guys not named Brees or Pollard. And Brees and Pollard are more valuable than Rashad White right now in Dynasty. Like Brees Hall is a top 5 Dynasty running back. Tony Pollard might be he's probably a top 10 Dynasty running back. Rashad White is an RB2 Dynasty running back. Daniel Jones is a high-end QB2 in Dynasty. That's more valuable. If the counter is enough to make him say, you know what, screw you, I'm not going to do this trade, then obviously don't poke the bear. But if I were you, AB, yeah, I would. If I'm acquiring Daniel Jones in this situation and trading Rashad White to make it happen, yes, I would do that deal. I would get Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is the guy who I want in it, but in that deal in a super flex league, it gives you a clear cut QB2, given your options, and you've got good running back depth. You've got good running back depth to offset the loss of Rashad White there. Yeah, I would do that trade because I would start Daniel Jones over any of those other 3 guys. Obviously, Fields is your QB1, but I'm starting Daniel Jones easily over Stafford and Ritter, and we don't even know if Brissett's going to play. You feel much better if Brissett is your QB5, not your QB4. And then, yeah, I know Rashad White is enticing. He's exciting, right? Looks like he's an emerging bell cow. Should catch a ton of passes this year. Probably has an easy path to ascend the running back rankings, but you've already got Brees Hall and Tony Pollard, who he's probably not going to supplant. He's probably not going to leapfrog Brees Hall and Tony Pollard. Maybe he leapfrogs Tony Pollard in, say, a year and a half when they're a little bit older, but he's not going to supplant Brees. So even this year, you have, you're giving up your RB3. And Connor is good enough to be that RB3 as well. He's older, but he's not going to get the deal done. Yeah, I think that is the perfect spot. Rachaad White's arrow is trending up, but in a super flex league, you're getting a high-end QB2 for a running back. You have to do that. You just have to do that. Daniel Jones has, he's your clear-cut super flex starter as a result of the trade. He's got significantly more longevity, and he runs. Yeah, good move. Good move. I approve. If there aren't other questions, I will call this for the evening. Y'all can get on with your Thursday evenings. Maybe catch the game. Maybe just get ready for your weekend. Whatever it is. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. Yeah. Before if I'm in here, you can fire them off. Yeah. No, go for it. Anything for the members. If the if members ask questions as I'm signing off, it's like, sorry, or if non-members ask me questions while I'm signing off, then that's on y'all. But I got you guys. Happy to do this. Yeah, if you're drafting now, it's almost like sorry about that. I wish y'all were drafting later because obviously you're opening yourself. There's lots of it's dicey. There's lots of room there's a big margin for potential things to come up. You never know. Field, Pollard, and Justin Jefferson. For me, it's not DK. I like DK Metcalf. He's obviously a big-time playmaker. But he does have more down weeks than you would maybe think. And they added Jackson Smith-Njigba, who is not going to supplant DK Metcalf this year as the wide receiver one, as Seattle's wide receiver one, but he's going to command a lot of targets. For me, it's not DK. It would be between Higgins and Mark Andrews. If you only start 2 receivers, AB, Mark Andrews. If you start 3, I do think I would go Higgins. If you're worried about Joe Burrow, then you can just go ahead and take Mark Andrews. I guess those are the questions I have. If it's start 3 receivers versus start 2 receivers, I would say that helps. And then you just have to ask yourself, are you worried at all about Joe Burrow's calf injury to start the season? He's not going to miss time, supposedly, but he's missing some practice time now. If there's a quarterback where you're not too worried about, it is a guy like Burrow. But it is something to note. If you don't care at all, if you're not worried about that, and you start 3 receivers, then for me, the answer is Higgins. And you can get, if you can stomach it, you can get Kyle Pitts a few rounds later. Or Dallas Goedert. I like Dallas Goedert a lot this season. He was go look at his per game numbers last year. Dallas Goedert was about as rock solid as they come, especially when you consider that even the best tight ends have down weeks. They have 3-4 point outings where it's just like they don't help you in a way that you hope they do. Goddard, I don't think he ever did that. I don't think he was ever below 6 or 7 points in a season, in a game last year, 7 or 8 points. And he was consistently hovering around 10, 11. And in that offense that should have to throw more this season because they don't have as easy as a schedule with the Eagles, Dallas Goedert is one of my favorite tight ends to grab late. So while I do like Mark Andrews at cost this year, if you start 3 receivers, I would probably give the edge to Higgins. if you start 3 receivers, I assume it's at least half PPR or full PPR. Same deal. I can't imagine you do standard scoring with 3 wide receivers. So, yeah. You play the rules of your league. Sometimes that helps to just answer the question for you. If I only started 2 receivers all the way, I'm grabbing Mark Andrews there, and I'll just get honestly, that makes me kind of almost want to punt wide receiver because it's going to be easier to fill those spots because there's so many good ones. But with 3 wide receivers, you want to hang your hat on a couple of high end options. Justin Jefferson, obviously, being the high end option, but it's like, fuck it. Give me another one. I already have a bona fide QB one. I think Pollard is a potential first round pick next year. You got him in the second round. Get another stud wide receiver since you start 3. Yeah, I think that's the perfect start. I think it's the perfect start this year if you have the 101. Stud wide receiver, stud running back. You took Fields higher than what I think like some leagues would do, but maybe quarterbacks go high in this draft, or maybe it's a sleeper, or maybe it's maybe it's a super flex league. Either way, actually no, it's not a super flex league. Fields would be a first round pick if that was the case. So it's probably one quarterback. Either way, it's a good start. Keeper. Got you. I'm in the same boat this year. I have Fields as a 15th round keeper. And I'm very excited. Okay, got you. These are your keepers. Well, those are some very good keepers. Got you. And maybe Jefferson was your first overall pick. Yeah, I would go Higgins. I like it. It's a good start. Gonna shut it down at this time. It is a bit quiet. Just wanted to go over some news and notes with y'all and what the fantasy fallout is of the recent happenings in training camp as we kick off this second week of the preseason. Enjoy the games if you are watching them. I'm sure my Dynasty people will be. I'm available in the Discord. If you guys ever want to talk shop in there, you already know. If you have questions that come up off stream, feel free to hit the Discord up and I can help you out in there. Enjoy the football. If you're not watching the preseason, enjoy your weekend, however you guys are choosing to spend it. Have fun. Stay safe. I will see y'all next week. Thanks, everybody.